Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Bump Podcast, a place for the believers of the unexplained, monsters, and paranormal. Join us, and we'll go face to face with what goes bump in the night. Hey there, believers. I got another exciting episode for you this week. Today, I'm bringing on Audrey. Audrey emailed me about a possession case that she witnessed and lived through, and I'm going to let her go into all the details. But if we get into everything that's in the email, this is probably one of the most intriguing conversations I am yet to have as far as this topic. Before we get started, I just want to thank everybody again for all the love and support for the show, and to give you guys a little recap. I'm not sure when it's going to be released, but I went down to Tennessee and had a sit-in interview with Tony Merkel for his show, The Confessionals Podcast. At the time of recording this is the 19th of May, and we recorded together on the 17th, and it was a lot of fun. It was exciting. Tony's a great guy. Jack is a great guy. We got to meet them both and hang out with them for a little while before, during, and after the show. But just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about what happened on the way down. I left here. I live in Southern West Virginia, and I worked all day Friday. It was my seniors' last day of school, and so I didn't want to miss it. So I stayed at work all day. Took my wife's truck down, and she didn't get home until like 5:30. And so since I was using her truck, I waited for her to get home, gave her a kiss goodbye, jumped in and left. That put me, if I was going to drive all the way down to where Tony's at, it would have been about a 5.5 hour drive. And leaving at 5:30 in the evening already, I decided to book a hotel in a place called Corbin, Kentucky. And driving down there, looking at the radar for that Friday night, the 16th, it looked like I was going to drive straight into a horrible storm system. So, I was just praying. I don't like driving at night in the rain. I'm getting a little bit older. My eyes aren't as sharp as they used to be when I was a younger guy, and, but no rain at all. I was, praising the Lord the whole time. And I get down to my hotel, and, I ordered dinner. It was like 9 o'clock at night when I get there, and I'm texting my wife, that I made it. It was wonderful. There was no rain. God is good. And I'm getting ready to go to bed. It's about 11:15, and I get an alert on my phone that a tornado has touched down, and it's a tornado warning. And to get down to the lobby on the first floor, excuse me, but that there was a tornado warning. One had touched down in Somerset, Kentucky, which is its own weird thing. But everybody in the hotel goes down to the lobby, and we're hanging out down there. And you can see the lightning and the wind, and nobody knows for sure where this thing is heading. And I look on the weather app, and I'm inside the red zone. There's like this little like projection of where they think the tornado's going, and Corbin was at the very bottom of that projection. So I prayed Psalm 91 down there in the lobby, and about 12:15, I just went back up to the room. I thought I didn't want to stay down there all night. Excuse me, I got having a hard time. Something got a tickle in my throat. Sorry. But yeah, I go back up to the room, and open my Bible up to Psalm 91 also, and I lay that in front of the window. And I just speak against the storm, and go get in bed. We're still under a tornado warning. Some people might think it's foolish to not stay down there by the supply closet and tuck in and all that, but uh, I don't. I'm not saying that you know commanding the storm not to come down there left it to go up through where it did. I'm saying that by faith, I knew I'd be okay, right? And I laid down and turned on my Bible app and slept like a champ. Woke up 5 hours later and went to go do the show. Now, it did wreak havoc through Somerset, Kentucky, and across into London, Kentucky. And there were several lives lost. And I asked everybody to pray for those affected. It was pretty devastating. It was just 13.9 miles above where I was at. And I thank the Lord that it didn't hit me or the hotel I was in, but my heart does go out to those people. So please keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Next morning, beautiful day, drove down there and had the interview with Tony. It went great. I felt like, of course, there's things I wish I would have brought up on the show. Um, there's things that I wish I would have maybe reworded. But that's how it goes. That's my own insecurities. I don't want to think on that too much. I think it was a great interview. It was just a great experience, I should say. And then leaving, my goodness. Sorry for stopping so many times. I think it's just I've been outside all morning. Maybe it's just the pollen. But once the interview was over, I was heading home. Did a little shopping out in Sevierville and gassed up at Buc-ee's. First time experience in Buc-ee's. I see why everybody loves that so much. That was so cool. That place was huge. Um, I get it. I understand it now. That place was fun. But I start heading home and I get rerouted 4 times due to road conditions. I guess there was road closures because of the storm. There was high water. So I wound up not getting home until about 9 o'clock at night, Saturday night. It's supposed to be like a 4.5 hour drive. Took me all day long, probably 6 or 7 hours to get to the house of actual driving time. So I made the most of it. I caught up on a bunch of podcasts and just I don't know. I just enjoyed it. It was a good time. So I say all that to say, watch for the episode that I'm going to be on, the confessionals with Tony. I hope to do it again sometime this summer. We talked about bringing a couple more guests in and doing maybe a round table. Who knows? We'll see. Schedules are kind of rough for to coordinate with that many people. And please keep Lindsay in your prayers. She's going through a tough time, and pray for her and Tony and the family. For peace and comfort in their mind as well, and for them to stay strong. Okay. All right. That's enough jibber jabber. I'm going to go ahead and bring on Audrey. If you have an experience that you would like to share, holler at me. The email address is thebumppodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach me on the bump phone, and I have a dozen or more emails to catch up with and text messages, but I will get to you as soon as I possibly can. That number is 304-812-0553. All right. I hope this camera angle is okay. Oh no, I'm trying something different. Let's go ahead. Did you get it?
Mhm.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so this is a possession case that happened about 15 years ago. It kind of started when I was going to Texas State University. I got my degree in psychology. And so I had been single for a while, and I had just started looking on an app. It was called Plenty of Fish. And I found this guy on there. And so I invited him to come out. And so he came to a party with me and some of my friends. Honestly, I didn't even think he was that interested in me. He seemed to be more interested in one of my friends,
Okay.
but he must have had a good time because he came back out. And so we got to know each other a little bit, and eventually we got into a relationship. At the time, everything seemed fine. Like, he seemed like a very normal guy, but I was still like getting to know him. And once we started dating for a while, he eventually started staying over at my apartment a lot. So I had a roommate. So it was a 2-bedroom apartment. And the first thing that happened, or the first like weird thing that I noticed, was one night we had gotten into an argument, and he was sleeping on the floor of my bedroom.
Hmm.
And it was like 3 in the morning. And I woke up to hearing some like hysterical laughter, and it freaks me out. So I
Yeah,
turned on the lights, and I saw my boyfriend laying on the ground. I'm not going to say his name, by the way, just to
that's
keep him
totally
out of it.
fine. Yeah.
But he was on the floor in the bedroom, and he was rocking back and forth, like laughing hysterically, but it seemed like he was in pain, and I didn't know what the hell was going on. So I ran over to my roommate's room, and I was like banging on her door for help and screaming her name. And apparently she wasn't home that night. So
Mm.
of course, like, they must have known that, because all the stuff that happens never really happened around other people except for like maybe one time.
Wow.
Um, so I went back in the room, and he had stopped, and he sat me down on the bed, and he was like, "I have to tell you something." And I'm thinking, what the hell? I was just thinking weird dream or something. And
Right.
he tells me that he had been possessed by a demon named Jezebeth for a while. I guess throughout his senior year of high school, he had been possessed. And he noticed it like early on, because she would speak to him. Um, and then like, things would happen. I remember him telling me that like on the bus rides to like the football games, like sometimes all the lights would go out, and just weird things would kind of happen. He'd go to a gas station, all the lights would go out, things like that. And so I'm just thinking, this guy's crazy, right? Like, okay, whatever. And so we kind of don't really talk about it again. And he was living at his grandmother's house out in Pflugerville, Texas, and because he was working in that area. And so this was around the time that Paranormal Activity came out, and
Hmm.
me and him were like huge horror buffs. And so we wanted to watch it. So we went and rented it, and we were watching it in his bedroom. Well, his grandmother had like a fancy car. And so she went out to a car show that night. And so we had turned off all the lights. We're getting like, ready for a scary movie,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so we started watching Paranormal Activity, and his bedroom door's closed. The light comes on underneath the door. And so we just think, well, his grandmother must have came home, right? Well, then the light turns off again. And so we're like, well, that's weird. She wouldn't just leave, right? We just kind of ignore it. And then throughout the movie, the light comes on and off again, like just starts flickering. So we go out to investigate, and there's no one in the house. She's not home yet.
Mm.
And so like that was really awkward. And so I was just like, okay, well, maybe his house is haunted. Like, like, I'm trying to debunk all these things. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't real. But then maybe like a week or two later, we went to go see the movie The Devil. It was playing at a Tinseltown in that area. And so while we were there, before the movie started, like, we're sitting in the seats during the previews, he like texts on his phone to me, and he says that more demons are coming through. Like, they're telling him that more demons are coming. And so I'm just like, what the hell? We're about to watch this scary movie, and like, he's telling me that demons are coming, and I'm like, okay.
Wow.
So this is where it starts getting weird. We leave the movie, and we're holding hands, we're walking to the car, and there's these police officers in the parking lot, and he starts growling at them. And so I look over at him, and I'm like, what the hell's happening? And I see the switch. This is the first time that I saw something demonic like come through him.
Yeah.
And if you've never seen it in person, it's basically like the eyes go dead. It's not like in the movies where their eyes black out and it's like super obvious, but there's like your soul's in your eyes. You can tell that there's a light there. And there was no light, like his eyes were just dead.
Hmm.
And then when they would come through, like his voice would change, and not like movie creepy type, whatever. It was just in this particular case, it was deeper. So the person that came through was actually Satan, which go figure, we just watched the devil movie. So it
Right.
was Satan that came through, and he was telling me that to pay attention to that movie. So if you've never watched the devil, it's like the whole movie you're trying to figure out who the devil is in the movie.
Is that the
um
is that the M. Night Shyamalan movie, like where they're in an
mhm.
elevator?
Yep. Yep,
Okay.
that one.
Okay.
And so he's telling me that they send messages through entertainment. Like they'll use movies or TV shows to, I guess, send their messages through. And so he was like, you need to pay attention to that movie. There's a message there. And then he went away. And I was just like, okay. And
Now,
so go ahead.
at this point, do you think he's just carrying on? You have a psych major, so
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
are you in that realm of spiritual and psychology, or are you just thinking like, okay, this guy's got a
Well,
pretty
I
good
grew up,
diagnosis of, you know?
no, I grew up super Catholic.
Okay.
My family's very, very religious. And so, church every weekend, Bible school on Wednesdays. So I knew that this was a possibility that people do get possessed, so I wasn't like completely, oh, this isn't happening.
Right.
And I knew him. So it wasn't up until that moment when someone came through that I knew, like, it's a feeling that you get to. There's an actual presence that you feel. It's very heavy,
Yeah.
that just changes everything. And so I knew that that was not him in that conversation that I had. So I was very aware that no, he, at this point, like, yes, he is possessed. Like, wasn't really sure what to think because this has never happened to me in my lifetime. Like, I've had some angelic experiences and things like that, but never demonic. um and so from there is where it really got wild. Like, this is when like multiples would start coming through.
Mm.
So one of the first demons that I met was Lilith. And so we were at my apartment in San Marcos, and he told me that somebody wanted to speak with me, like that they wanted to come through and speak with me. And I said no, like absolutely not. I was so terrified of all of this happening that I was like, there's no way in hell. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want
No
to
doubt.
speak with them. I don't want anything to do with this. Like,
Right. Now,
um,
I hate to keep interrupting, but did he
it's
find
fine.
this stuff? Did he find this stuff cool? Like, was he into like witchcraft or something? Or
No, he, we'll get into that kind of
oh, okay,
in the story, but
yeah,
like he had read every Bible, Torah, like everything you can name of. He was a very avid reader, very intelligent man. And so like he had, maybe that was possibly like a gateway in a way, but
okay,
I wouldn't say he was into it. Actually towards the middle of this, he was very terrified of it.
okay.
But in his head, this was kind of the norm because Jezebel had been talking to him for quite a while. He even showed me a DVD of where he was possessed at one point. But I'm not really gonna get into that. But so
We
yeah,
can. Oh, we
uh, it's not something I would want to put on YouTube,
okay, okay.
but yeah, so he did show me a DVD where I could tell that he was possessed in the video. But yeah, he said that somebody wanted to come through, and so since I was saying no, he went to the cocktail table in the middle of the living room with like a pen and paper, and he was writing something down, but the demon had to come through in order to give the message to me. And they, it was ended up being Lilith, but she looked at me and she was just like, she called me a coward. She's like, you
Mm,
coward, which, yeah, of course I was
yeah,
like, I was terrified. I didn't know what the hell was happening. And but yeah, she came through, and I thought I didn't have what she wrote, but I actually do.
Well,
So I'm gonna read what she wrote. And my mom had actually told me to take notes when this was happening, but I put in there, Lilith comes to talk to me, and I'm not allowed to say this conversation. Like, she told me I was not allowed to say this, but demons are liars. So
right.
um it says, the end is near, not end of the world, but hell on earth is soon, unless we stop it. No one can help us now. We are on our own. I may be able to make it out alive. It will take luck. My boyfriend and Azazel will fight, determines whether hell is on earth. He must win. If not, billions will die. They will use him. So that's what she wrote, which will tie in together later in the
Yeah.
story. But yeah, so that's a nice little message that I got from her. And so yeah, she disappeared that night. And in the beginning, they didn't really come through all the time. It was just like here and there. And then eventually it became like a nightly thing for me. This happened over the course of 3 years of us being together. So yeah, I don't know how I got through
You're
it.
loyal, I tell you that.
I loved him very much. We had actually planned on getting married and all
Yeah.
that, but if it wasn't for lack of love, bad things could have happened, I feel like, in this story. But yeah, so I told him I wanted to be done with this. I said I don't want to speak with demons anymore. I don't like this. And so he told me that he had spoken with a demonologist in Austin a while back, and he knew how to get rid of them temporarily. And I said, okay, let's do it. And he was like, well, it's painful. And I said, like, no offense, but I don't care. Like, we need to do this. I'm done. Like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And so we were actually house sitting at his parents' house out in Liberty Hill. And so they have, a pretty open floor plan. And so he was in the living room, and there's like a glass door for the backyard. And so he took a marker and he like wrote some symbols on the glass. And then he drew like a big circle in the living room with some like sigils on it. And so he was like, you need to go stand in the kitchen because I'm not sure what's going to happen. And so the kitchen was pretty far away. So I went and stood in the kitchen, and he starts saying this, like, I don't know if it's like a ritual or prayer or chant or something, but he starts saying this thing, and he tells me that he can see through the glass like the reflection of Jezebeth standing behind him.
Mm.
And then he also sees an angel killing her, right? And so he finishes the prayer or whatever, and then he slams his hand down in the center of the circle, and his body gets lifted up and thrown into the couch as soon as he like does that, and the couch goes flying across the room. And I'm standing in the kitchen like watching this, like, what the hell is happening, right?
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, that hurt. But he's like, but they'll be gone, he's like, well, nothing will happen for a while. And I'm just like, all right, like, whatever. So yeah, I know.
No, I'm pulled in on this. This is like
uh,
interesting.
yeah, it's if you haven't ever seen it, it sounds crazy, but like, I witnessed it, I was there, like, I saw this happen. And
Yeah.
so that's all I can speak to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that night we try to go to bed, and when we're laying in bed, Jezebeth actually comes through, and I think I wrote it down somewhere, but basically she says, she kind of laughs and she's like, y'all thought y'all got rid of me, like, I'm not gone, kind of thing. And then we hear some rumbling upstairs, and like no one's home. So he goes upstairs, and some books were thrown off of the shelf, basically. And then so they had really tall stairs, and they had a cross like at the very top, like you would need a ladder to get to it. The cross on the wall was then upside down. And so we're like, yeah, we're gonna have to take care of that before your parents come back home. So, we ended up having to get a ladder and fix it. But yeah, and that kind of became like a norm of things like that happening. I mean, I even went and bought those Jesus candles
All
and
right.
thinking like whatever. And so, but if they came through, they would immediately blow out and stuff like that. So
Really?
yeah. So basically what I started doing was I ended up putting salt. My roommate eventually moved out and it was just me in there. And I ended up putting salt around my bed and at my doorways.
Hmm.
So growing up, I always believed that salt would protect you from evil, and that demons can't cross salt. And so in this case, that actually was true. Come to find out, demons could not cross the salt, so that ended up saving me quite a few times.
Now,
Um,
was it like blessed salt? Like,
It wasn't. I didn't know at the time that you're supposed to bless the salt. I just used Morton salt from our
wow.
HEB store and it worked. And I think, it has more to do with faith than anything.
Yep.
If you believe that God's going to protect you by using this, it's going to work. And he did. Like he totally saved me a lot throughout this entire case.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I kept salt at the doors. I kept salt around my bed. And if they would come through, I would just run to my bed. And then I knew that like they couldn't cross. Eventually come to find out that if they were fallen angels, they could cross.
Mm.
But if they were demonic, they could not. So because I had both come through, unfortunately. But um so eventually I got to meet Lucifer. So I've watched exorcisms or like not exorcism, like exorcists talk about Lucifer because I've done research since all of this. And they say that Lucifer comes through very different in every case. And so I don't know if this is like normal for him to be this way, but for me personally, he had a certain way that he would sit every single time. So he liked to sit in a chair in my room. I remember one time, like I was in the bathroom and my boyfriend was in the kitchen making a sandwich or something, and I left the door of the bathroom open. And you could see into my bedroom. When I had gotten up to go wash my hands, I noticed that the chair was now in the center of my room, and that was a normal occasion when Lucifer would come through. And so
Mm.
I knew like oh crap, he's coming. Like so I ran to my bed to get in the salt and I could see my boyfriend like starting to walk very slowly towards the chair. And so I knew already he was possessed. So I would run to my bed and then Lucifer, he would come and he'd sit in the room and he would always cross one leg over the other. And then he would do like this tapping on his leg like this. And that was like the sign that that was Lucifer that I was speaking to, because each demon or fallen angel would have their own personality. And so that way I could start to determine who was who throughout this. Um, and so like I knew that that was Lucifer, and he came through probably the most out of everybody. I don't know why he wanted to talk to me so often. I don't know if Satan sent him. Like I picture them as two separate beings. Growing up I always thought Satan and Lucifer were one and the same.
All right.
But throughout this I realized that they're really not, because Satan would call Lucifer Lucy and Lucifer hated it. And so like I realized that, well, I started calling him Lucy too, but because I was just there was a point where I started to get annoyed by all of this.
Say so. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I remember there was one time when that was the first time that I realized that he could cross the salt because he was a fallen angel, and he got off the chair and he went onto my bed. And I just remember I probably had a look of horror on my face that he could cross the salt, and I'm just looking at him. And he would threaten me a lot and things like that. I don't even, this is 15 years ago, so I don't even remember the majority of the conversations. But I know I had a bunch of them with him. And I remember when he got off of the bed, the salt line was broken. He had broke the salt line, and then there was a footprint that he'd left that was not a human footprint. It was like half hoof, half foot. And I have a picture of it as well somewhere, that he left. Like it was the salt had created like this, half human, half horse
Yeah.
or something foot, right? And so thankfully immediately I noticed that the salt was broken. So I kept the salt by my bed and I just like report it because he would try to use demons to attack me, to try to kill me. And so I would immediately like put that there to, fix the salt line. But
Yeah.
that was him trying to like get access. Maybe he wasn't allowed to harm me. I don't really know. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because if fallen angels could cross, they could have killed me at any time, but demons couldn't. So I don't know if they had different parts in all of this or whatever. I can't really explain it. Um, but there was one time when we were at his grandmother's, and I guess I should go back to him receiving powers. So um most possession cases you'll hear like people have super strength, or like there's just they can crawl on walls, they can levitate, things like that. My boyfriend could do all of those, but there was a specific moment at his grandparents' house that I feel like God sent this lightning bolt. That's the best way I can describe it. It was this bolt of light that came through the ceiling through a stained glass. She had this like stained glass hanging from the ceiling of his bedroom.
Hmm.
It went through the ceiling, through the glass into his body. And at that moment he started to levitate. And then he like he went back down and he said, I feel stronger, and like I physically like could see his muscles getting bigger, like his arm muscles were actually bigger in front of me. And so I guess to test it, I was sitting on the bed and he like lifted up the bed with one finger with me on it and then set it back down.
What?
And he knew that he had like these powers now. And so I say that it's a gift from God, but he also had powers from both, is the best way to describe it. So I'm just gonna have to like jump into it.
Yeah.
Um
Well, let me
he
ask you,
believes, go
you,
ahead.
you saw him go up walls and stuff too?
So the crawling on the walls, I didn't see. He told me that he would wake up in the middle of the night and he'd be on the ceiling.
Oh, wow.
Uh, yeah. And so a lot of this I refused to see. There were moments where I could have saw things and I chose not to,
Yeah.
because I didn't want any part of this to begin with. And
Right.
so like he would tell me, oh, there's a demon outside your window, he's got red eyes, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm not looking. Like I don't want to see that. Like I don't even know why you're telling me that.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of things that I just refuse to be a part of in general. Um, but he did receive these powers. And it's because they considered him to be their antichrist. Whether that's true or not, I can't tell you, but he believed he had two fathers. He believed that God was his father and that Satan was his father, and that he received powers from both.
Hmm.
And so we were big fans of Supernatural, the TV show. And so there's a demon in there that snaps his fingers and things would happen. So he kind of took that and he stole that from that show. And so he would snap his fingers and things would happen. Um, and I asked him about it one day, and he was like, well, I have powers from both. The snapping the fingers is the powers from Satan. And if he put his hands together in prayer, then he had powers from God. So he could do good or evil, which would make sense if you truly are the Antichrist to be able to do both, because in Revelation it tells you that when the Antichrist comes, everyone's going to think that he's Jesus because he can do all of these good things. So he was definitely capable of performing good deeds and miracles and things like that. Just throughout this, most of the time he would snap. I don't know, he had no love for anybody. I
Right.
was the first person like in his entire life that he had ever loved, from what he told me. Like he didn't have love for his family, he didn't have love for his friends, like he just
Wow.
yeah, so I was the only person that he had ever loved, and so maybe he was just lost. I don't know. Obviously me being a very religious person, I would guide him towards God and be like, no, like first off, don't use the powers at all.
Right.
because when he would use the powers, they would come through more. Like the activity became more frequent. And so I think they wanted him to use it. And I was just not about it. And I was like, please, like, stop, like, don't, whatever. But I mean, if he was angry or mad about something, like, he would snap and things would happen.
Like
Like
what
one
kind of
time,
things?
yeah, one time, we were walking outside. He got mad at me for something I don't even remember, but he snapped his fingers, and then two dead birds like fell in front of us on the ground, and he was like, "Dang, I only meant to kill one," And I'm just like, "Why did you kill one at all? What the
Right.
hell's wrong with you?" But things like that. He would change the colors of my face because he was bored, things like that. One time I locked myself out of the apartment and I didn't have the key. I left it inside. And so he snapped his fingers and locked my apartment. He could walk through rain and not get wet. One time it was like storming out, and he was supposed to be driving from Pflugerville to my apartment, and I guess he didn't feel like driving, so he actually teleported his truck into my parking lot and then walked through the rain. But by the time he got to my door, he was not wet one drop.
That's freak.
So yeah, and I asked him about that, and I said, "Well, did anyone see you?" And he goes, "No, I checked." And so I'm like, what kind of abilities do you have? But they would teleport him to other places too, not even in Texas. I think one time he said that he went to Nepal, that some demon was chained there and they sent him there. One time he told me he went somewhere in the woods, he didn't know where he was, and he believes that he killed something or someone, and he came back with blood on his face. And he said it was very like wolf-like. His jaw was displaced. Um, I don't know. Those two things I never saw. These were stories that he told me of what happened. So
Yeah.
I have no idea, but I do feel like, yeah, that could have happened because all the crazy stuff I saw, like anything was possible.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but most of the time he'd snap his fingers because he was a dipper and he wanted his dip can. And so he'd snap his fingers and then his dip can would appear. But going back to Lucifer, there was one time we were at his grandmother's house and we were sitting on the bed, and it was Lucifer, but he snapped his fingers and a knife appeared in his hand and he threatened me. And he said, if because he knew I was talking to my mom about this. He said, if you continue to talk to anyone about this, I will not only kill your entire family, but I will cut out your tongue and your eyes. And
Oh,
so
goodness.
from that moment on, I never talked about it again. I told my mom that it had stopped. And I just felt very isolated, very alone. I had no one to reach out to about it. And that actually kept me from speaking about it for 2 years after as well. I didn't talk to anyone about it. I kept holy water in my purse at all times for those full 2 years,
Yeah.
even though we had broken up. Later down the road, like I ended up breaking up with him. But um yeah, so it wasn't until I realized, demons are liars and that nothing was going to happen, that I finally told the new guy I was dating that ended up being my husband, now ex-husband. But I told him before we got married, my story. And he actually knew the guy. So he was like, yeah, I could see that.
Wow.
So yeah, he, fully believed the story.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that was most of Lucifer. The only other story that I remember with him was like one time when I was playing the Wii back in the day. I would play the Wii in my apartment, and he came through, and I was just annoyed at this point, and I was asking him to help me with the game because like I was just so over it. I was like, well, help me figure out this level. It's really hard or something. And I guess he got annoyed back because then he made my TV go static. And so the
Really.
game obviously shut off. So yeah, the TV was static. And then I was just like, what do you want? Like, I was just so over it. But yeah, so I would get Latin texts in the middle of the night sometimes. My boyfriend could speak like fluent Latin after that. Like one time he said, the Our Father prayer in Latin in front of me. Just he just had all the abilities to do all that. But I wrote down one of them. I don't know what year it was. It's like 3 different like Latin texts that I had gotten. And I had translated one of them. It just says July 15th, 2:41 a.m. But I didn't put the year. And translated, it says, in every end, there is a new beginning, and my time with the boy is far from over. He is destined for terrible things, and I intend to show him the way. He shall serve the son of the morning soon enough, and you will not stop me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I got that text in the middle of the night, and I called him because he wasn't with me. And I said, "You just sent me a text in Latin." He goes like, "No, I didn't." Like, he was obviously asleep. And I said, "You need to check your phone." And so he checked his phone, and he goes, "Well, I didn't send that to you." So we assumed that was Jezebeth sending that text, and she had sent a few of them or whatever. But yeah. So it's like, where do I even go from here?
Yeah.
Um the whole antichrist thing, one time I walked in like in his bedroom, and he was chanting like shaking back and forth, and he was saying, uh 2 and 2 and 3 and 3, my father split the numbers me. 2 and 2 and 3 and 3, my father split the numbers me. And he just like repeated that over and over and over. And I've tried to decipher what the 2 and 2 and 3 and 3 is. I assume one is Satan and one is God. Obviously my father's split. He's saying he has 2 fathers. The numbers me, meaning he's the antichrist, something along those lines. But like stuff like that would happen a lot. Or we'd walk in to some room or something, and Highway to Hell would start playing on Alexa, or we had a demonology book, and it would be open to like certain pages on his bed that wasn't left out. And
Right.
I think one time he had a file on his computer that we knew was from them that we just deleted. We never opened it. I said, I don't want to see it. Like, so we just, or his screensaver would change to upside down crosses. Like, all kinds of stuff,
Just
like
constant,
insane stuff,
like
all the time,
taunting or something. Yeah.
all the time. Yeah, they were having fun. They definitely have personalities. Sometimes I even thought they were funny. Like they would joke around. And one of them, I was really into Pirates of the Caribbean, and one of them like pretended to be Johnny Depp and did the whole like whatever.
Yeah.
They knew the things that I liked. They could read my mind, which I know in most possession cases you hear they're like demons cannot read minds. Well, maybe that was one of his powers or one of his gifts that was given to him because he could. Um, like they gave him my face, or actually Lilith was the one that gave him my Facebook password one time. He just said it out loud, and he's like, "What does that mean?" And I was like, "That's my password to my Facebook." He's like, "Well, why would they want me to have that? Are you cheating on me?" Like, whatever. It actually ended up building trust because I let him on it, and like he
Right.
saw there was nothing. So Lilith actually kind of did help us through this. I don't have any animosity towards her as far as anything that happened. And I hate saying that because she is demonic, and she told me not to trust her, but at the same time she really did kind of help us through all of this. um but yeah, so things like that.
No.
They would come through, and like I remember one time there was a demon that wanted to leave. Like I had the door closed, I was on my bed in the salt, and a demon came through, and he wanted out badly. Like he wanted to go destroy, and I refused to let him out. And he's like, "Well, I had like a small cup of water on my bed." And he's like, "That water's only going to last you about 3 days and you'll be dead." And I said, "Well, then I guess I'm going to die because you're not getting out of here." And then, maybe a few minutes later, he disappeared because, yeah, anytime they would come through, his body would be very weak. And usually he would nap or like fall asleep afterwards because it would use a lot of strength, I guess, or
Right.
I don't even know. I come to find out later that he was basically asleep when that happened, but they lied to me and said that he was in hell. So they would make me do, um, can't say on YouTube, but they would make me do certain acts that I didn't want to do, because they would tell me that he's in hell, and if you don't hurry up, whatever. So there were things that happen against my will. Uh, yeah.
I'm
But
sorry you went
anyways,
through that.
Oh, it's okay. Like I said, it's been 15 years, so I've learned to cope on my own with it, and it is what it is. But um he also could speak Sumerian, which is one of the oldest dead languages out there. He's they don't like cats. Apparently they're the guardians of hell, is what they told me.
Really?
Um, yeah, and so there was like two cats outside of his grandparents' house, and he started speaking the dead language, and the cats disappeared. And I said, "Where did the cats go?" And he said, "I put them inside the house." And I was like, "Well, you don't think they're going to notice that their cats are in the house?" But
Mm.
I had two cats at the time too, and anytime they would come through, I would find them in the bathtub. Like, I guess the demons would put them in the tub because they would be nowhere to be found, and then I would go check the bathroom, they'd be in the tub. So they don't like cats, I learned. um but yeah, there was even a I guess they called it a Sumerian symbol on my car once. I stopped to get gas, and my car was dirty, but there was a symbol on the back of my car, and I called my boyfriend out and I said, "What is this?" And he said, "Wipe that off immediately." Apparently it was a symbol to, like, for them to be able to find me while I was driving, because what they were going to do was come through him and pull the wheel. So that way we would get into an accident. They said that I would die and he would live. But the whole time this was going on, they were trying to kill me because I was the only thing that he loved. And if I died, then he would be willing to be their antichrist, is how they worded it to me. And so, like, they tried to kill me a lot. Mostly there was a demon named Azazel. I don't know if he was a fallen angel. I always thought not, because he could never cross the salt, but when you look him up, it says fallen angel, so I'm not sure. But if he is a fallen angel, then God did not allow him to cross the salt, because he was the one that tried to kill me the most. He would come at me with certain things, sharp objects. I would scream my boyfriend's name and he would usually be like cast out. And so that kind of stopped that from happening. But he had threatened me that like he was going to not only kill me, but keep me alive enough that I would be able to see him eat my heart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you can just imagine how terrified I was during all of this. You're speaking to a demon who's telling you he's going to eat your heart in front of you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I cried a lot,
Yeah.
but it didn't happen, so
All right.
I'm
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
um,
That's absolute
but yeah,
torment, though. Yeah. That's,
it was really bad. It
yeah.
was really bad. But God was there a lot. I have to say, God stopped a lot of things. There was one time when I think something was about to come through, and I was in my bedroom and he was standing in front of the laundry room. He got thrown up and or lifted up and then thrown against the wall, but no demon was coming through yet. So I assume God stopped something from coming through, because then afterwards he touched my shoulders and he's like, "You feel good, like God's presence good." And so I was obviously protected from something that day. I don't know what exactly,
Mm.
but he stopped that from happening. And then eventually he sent me Archangel Michael, which was amazing. We had gone out and I had come home and I was in my apartment and I was like taking my shoes off. So I had one shoe off and I looked up and I noticed him changing. And so I thought a demon was coming through. So I immediately started to like jump on the bed, and they put out their hand and they said, like, "Don't be afraid." And so I did stop, which was odd, like, because normally I wouldn't listen, but like it felt different. And he said that your boyfriend prayed to me this morning, and God sent me here to well, before he said that, I said God, like, question mark, like I was like, because I only pray to God. um but he kind of just shook his head and he said, God sent me here to tell me that he's sorry for what you're going through and that you still have a chance. And he said that I'm going to watch over you tonight so that nothing will happen. And that was like the first night of peace that I had in a really long time. So
Mm.
yeah.
Well, thank God for that protection.
Yeah. He came through one other time when we were driving, but I don't really know why he came through. He didn't really have a message. I think maybe he just wanted me to know that he was around because my boyfriend was driving and he came through and I remember asking him like, "Do you know how to drive?" And he just kind of like smiled at me and he's like, "I drive really well." So he must come here a lot.
Yeah.
um but yeah, so there's only two times that I met Michael, but thankful to God that he sent him and that I knew that he was aware of what was happening and that he was protecting me throughout all of this. So it's pretty cool.
It is.
Um, what else? I'm trying to think. Oh, kind of a big deal. There was one time when he died. So we were in my room and yeah, it wasn't like anything happened. We were just sitting on the bed and he said they want to show me hell. And I was like, well, no, or I don't want you to go there, whatever. But I guess he agreed. And so in order for him to go, he had to die. And so he died in my arms. And he was gone for probably a good 5 minutes Earth time. In my arms he was gone and I was bawling my eyes. Sorry. um I was crying to God and I was like, why? But he came back. um he came back and he you know how people who have near death experiences talk about like their life review?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he got a choice. He didn't do his life review, he did mine. So he got to see um specifically every guy that I had ever dated. He wanted to compare himself.
What?
Yeah, he had a big ego. And so he I guess specifically took those memories. And then they sent him to hell. And he said that the hell he was in, my very first boyfriend was there. So my first boyfriend ended his life. That's okay. But he said that he was there and sorry, and that he was blind and burning, and that all he could hear was his screams and thousands of other screams. So I hope he's not there, but I don't know if people that do that go there or not. In my life, growing up Catholic, we did believe that, so
Right.
possibly yes. But I'm sad for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think he was religious. I don't think he knew God, so it's a good possibility that he's there. But I also had a friend in college who had an accidental overdose, and he let me know that he was not there. So, and he was a very religious man, so that was really nice to hear, if that's true. But then when he came back, he had asked me if I wanted to go. They were asking if I wanted to see hell. And he had told me it felt like an eternity, even though it had only been like 5 minutes, like time
Yeah.
is different. And I said, hell no. I'm not
Right.
curious. I don't ever want to go there. That is not, something I want to
Yeah.
do. Not only that, but I didn't believe that they would bring me back,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Or yeah.
I
Or
think
how
that
you
was
would have to
their
go. Yeah.
exactly like there was a million questions that went through my mind in that moment when he asked me that, but all of them were like, absolutely not. If you want to ask me to go to heaven, sure, but but not hell. Like
Right.
no. So that was that.
My goodness.
But um towards the end, activity kind of like slowed down. And I assumed that this is when he went to go get blessed. So eventually he did go get exercised. But he didn't tell me until after I had broken up with him that he did. I don't know if he wanted me to live in fear or what the reasoning was behind that. I was not okay with the fact that he never told me. Because when we moved into our new apartment, he wouldn't allow me to have the salt anymore. He didn't want to live like that anymore, and I was absolutely terrified of living without the salt because that was my protection. um but he wouldn't allow it, so I assumed before we moved he probably went and got exercise and just never told me, because the activity did slow down but it didn't go away. So I remember specifically it was New Year's Eve and we had come home, and the closet door we watched open, and he walked over to investigate it, and I stood in the living room and just kind of watched through the door. But he went into the closet and he closed the door. And I'm like, why did he close the door? And so I went and I opened the door and I saw him there with a shotgun towards his throat. And he was laughing and saying, "There's a bullet in the chamber. There's a bullet in the chamber." And I'm like wrestling with him, or the demon, I guess, that was possessing him, wrestling with the gun to get it away from him. And then they went away and we checked the gun and there actually wasn't any bullets inside. But in that moment I thought, he was gonna kill himself, so I was wrestling with him to get it out. But um that was the only like main event that really happened there. I told him that he was still possessed and he didn't believe me, so I made him wear a St. Benedict's cross one night, the one
Yeah.
that they use in exorcisms. And so I had him wear that one night because I said, well, no, you still growl in your sleep. And he was like, no. And so I made him wear it. Within 5 minutes, he was like trying to get off of him because it was burning his skin. And so I said, see, I tried to tell you that you're still possessed, because holy water would burn, but not as bad. Because sometimes I would have to throw holy water on them to try to get them to go away, and that they would physically react, but they wouldn't always leave. But the cross that time, yeah, they were gone. And so I don't know if he went and got a second blessing. I'm assuming so. Um, because it, cabinets would open in the kitchen all the time. Like the cabinets would just open and I'd wake up, that way. And one time he came into the bedroom and he was all freaked out and he was like, why are the cabinets open? And I was like, that happens all the time. Go back to sleep, And so I was used to it, but it was weird that he reacted that way because that was the norm.
Yeah.
And so I think that he might have got blessed again and he was starting to lose memory of this stuff, um, which is exactly what happened. So to this day, he doesn't really have any memory of me. So after he got the exorcism, he remembers nothing of anything that happened. He doesn't remember any demonic activity. He thinks I'm crazy. This never happened. I talked to a priest about it. Let me find it real quick because I was like, what does this mean? So Father Gary Thomas, he's the famous exorcist that was part of the Right movie with Anthony Hopkins. I emailed him and I had asked him about this back in 2018. And I said, is it common for someone to lose memories of the possession after the blessing? And he said, it is not unusual for someone to have no recollection or memory following a formal exorcism. It does not always happen, but it happens sometimes. Why it happens sometimes and not others, I do not have the answer. So yeah, he doesn't remember who I am. I've seen his mom and his sister since they've come into a place where I work a few times over the years. And I've asked them and they're like, oh yeah, he remembers you. And I said, no, you need to ask him. Like, he doesn't remember you. And I told his mom that she needs to get her house blessed. And she's it's funny because this was only a few months ago. And I said that, you need to get your house blessed. There's something there. And she was like, how do you know? Like, how did you know that? And I said, well, no, like, like there's something there. And she goes, oh no, I think it's a good spirit. I think it's something good. And I was like, no, like you need to get. So something apparently is still going on at that house, at her house, where he originally lived at. And I'm sure she still hasn't gotten it blessed or anything like that. But Um, but there was a thing where I call it the aftermath. After he had gotten blessed, there was a night when he had come home from work, and he said that entire day was like every person that he saw, it was like the apocalypse had happened. Like every person he saw was half skeleton, half human, whatever, like the entire day. He
Hmm.
said it was the worst day of his life. And then when he came home to me, he said that he could see me in every dimension, like multiples of me living my life. And he said they're also similar, but they're different. Um, but that he could see it. And I think that was the last thing that we like really talked about as far as that kind of stuff went. But yeah.
Wow.
And then so a few years after, I went to the Archdiocese of Austin to try to I had been trying to find this priest for 15 years. I wanted to speak with the priest about it because they were trying to tell him that it was one demon and not multiple. And I was like, hey, no way. Like
Right.
they're like because I met also Belial and Baltazar, however you say his name. Belial was a fallen angel, Baltazar was a demon, and they would come through quite often too. But theirs was more sexual in nature, unfortunately for me, when they would come through. So, and they didn't like each other. And like there was a time when my boyfriend was like rolling around on the floor because they were fighting through his body. And so you'd hear them like shouting to each other and like fighting through his body. Um, and then there was a night too that I briefly met Leviathan. He basically just made a box cutter appear in his hand and started coming towards me with it. But thankfully he was kicked out. Um, but they tried to tell me that he was the one that tempted Adam and Eve in the garden, that it wasn't Satan, that it was Leviathan. So
Hmm.
I don't know how true that is, but that's what they told me. They told me that Balthazar was actually Adam, like the original Adam and Eve Adam, that he
Wow.
had become Balthazar. So I don't know how true that is either. They told me that Archangel Uriel would fall. I don't know how true that is. Like these are just things that they would tell me. No idea, to be honest, like about any of this. But this is just what I was told.
Hmm.
So, but I went to the archdiocese to try to find the priest, and they were really nice, but not so helpful. I'll just put it that way. I have an email from the vicar at the time that you can tell me what you think of what this means. Okay, the end of the email says, we will not be able to provide you any further information on the priest who was involved with an exorcism.
Well, apparently there was a priest and there was an exorcism.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but when I had spoken with one of the other priests, I had written many Catholic churches. One of them had said that the only one that they knew that was doing deliverance ministry at the time was on like his last leg. He was dying of cancer. And so maybe it was him and they didn't want me reaching out or trying to reach out to him, which I wouldn't have if that was the case.
Wow.
But I would have liked to know a name or something. I would have liked to have some sort of confirmation so that way I could provide that to my family. Like, look, this is proof that this happened and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. They did say that they would be able to put me in touch with a priest who has experience with healing and deliverance ministry regarding the healing of memories. So I was like, does that mean y'all are trying to erase my memories? Is that like
Yeah.
y'all,
That's so I don't want to say
right?
sketchy, but that's so weird because there's like 125 Catholic exorcists right now, I think, in the
Yeah.
United States.
Yeah. He just said he can help address any lingering impressions you may have from your experience. So I took that as y'all want to erase my memory, and that's not happening. So I never went. I never responded to the email. But um one other thing about Lucifer that I forgot to mention, one time Lucifer wanted to reveal himself to him. So we had these woods behind my apartment because I was in the very back of the complex. And so he walked out to the woods so that Lucifer could appear to him. And he told me that one, that he was really ugly, but that he had like horns and that he had horse like hoofs, like feet, which makes sense because that's how he got off the salt. That he was huge. And when he came back into my apartment after seeing him, like he came back and his eyes were literally bleeding tears. Like he just had blood and he didn't even know. And I was like, you have blood on your face. And he wiped it and he was like, well, yeah, he was really ugly. I think that's kind of just how he left it. And I was just like, yeah. So um I don't know.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah. It's a lot.
this is intense. And
Mm,
a couple of questions.
yeah.
Um, you said about halfway through this, he started getting scared. Like he didn't want
Hmm.
anything left to do with this.
Hmm.
Was there like a triggering event? Like I think the first sign of this, somebody would run straight to the church and bust the doors open.
I asked him to. I asked him to several times to go get blessed, and he refused it. I don't know why. I don't know if he liked having the powers. Like, I could see how somebody would be intrigued by that and that he didn't want to get rid of them, maybe. I don't know, but I asked him several times to go and he just refused. One night he said something was manifesting in the closet and he told me to run. And like he turned, like, so I grabbed my purse and I started running for the door and he turned and it was just the creepiest smile. That anytime they would start smiling, it was just a little too big for a normal person's face. And so I ran out as soon as I saw that smile, because he said there was something like manifesting in the door, like right next to me. And so I ran out, and the only thing I could think of was to drive to the Catholic church in town. So I got in my car and I started hauling butt to the church. And he called me about halfway there himself, like as himself. And he was like, "Where did you go?" And I said, "I'm going to the church. Like, you told me to run. You said something was manifesting." Da, da, da. And he's like, "Well, they're gone. You can come back." So I ended up going back. But a lot of the time when they would come through, he wouldn't immediately have memory of what happened. One time I went to Blockbuster with Lucifer. Apparently, the entire time we were there, he would change the traffic lights. He didn't want to wait for the red, so he would snap his fingers and they would turn green. And we went to Blockbuster, and in Blockbuster, I knew that he was possessed. But sometimes, if I ignored it, they would disappear. They actually said that I was very smart because I ended up telling them later down the road that that's what I was doing. And they're like, "Oh, you're smarter than we thought," or something like that. But I knew in Blockbuster that he was possessed, but I thought it was just like a demon in that moment, in that little bit that we were at Blockbuster. And we ended up picking like 3 or 4 movies, one being like the Four Horsemen or whatever, of course.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like he picked the movies. So, and then we went to a gas station and he like picked me up and twirled me around, which was not normal for my boyfriend to do that. So I didn't really expect anything, but it was kind of odd. And then we got back to the apartment, and then when we got back, my boyfriend was like, "Okay, you ready to go?" And I said, "Go where?" And he's like, "To Blockbuster." And I was like, "We just went." And he's like, "No, he didn't." And I was like, "Yes." And then Lucifer came through and he said, "See, I can be him and you won't know that it's me." And then it went back to my boyfriend. And he was like, he got really mad at me for not being able to tell the difference. But I mean,
Yeah.
Lucifer's been around thousands of years. Like,
Right.
who am I? You know what I mean? But he was like, "Well, what movies did we get?" And then I showed him, the 3 or 4 movies that we got. And he was like, "Oh, yeah." They were all like horror movies. And usually when we would start a horror movie, we couldn't even finish it because there'd be activity before the end of the movie, or the TV would just go black or static, and like we never even got. So eventually, like we couldn't even enjoy life anymore. And
Right.
surprising that I even wanted to watch horror movies. But I mean,
Well, do you think there was a connection between the horror movie and opening a window for that to
yeah,
happen,
I
like
was.
in that
Yeah.
moment?
Oh yeah, 100%. Also drinking. Anytime he would drink, they'd come through no matter what. Demons would possess other people too. Like we would go get food and I would notice that, like, dead eyes, particularly on this one girl that was standing in line. And he was like, "Yeah, that's Lilith, she's watching us." And then it would happen with a dog at a party. I said, "The dog." there's something wrong with the dog, like, and he's like, yeah, that's Lilith. And so Lilith watched us a lot as we would go about our day to day. She would come through other people. But they were always mad that they couldn't come through me. Particularly Jezebeth was upset. And like, it wasn't until now that I realized that they couldn't come through because, I was baptized as a child and you can't come through if the Holy Spirit is within you. But I didn't know that then. I just thought God was saying, no, you can't,
Mm.
but yeah. So
I got another question, and
yeah.
I don't. I'm sure this has crossed your mind over the years. Um, why do you think that you were the target for all this? Because it seems like this guy who claims to not have any memory of this
Mm-hmm.
and wasn't into this to begin with, like this stuff. I know that he had things happen while he was in high school or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
it seems like there was a 3 year period of torment for
Mm-hmm.
you. You know,
Yeah.
why?
So I think everything happens for a reason. I don't think my heart is so big. And so even as a child, I think God saved me. I think in my whole life kind of led to that moment. And then I still obviously have a path because I'm still alive. So, but when I was a little kid, I was like 5 or 6, and I was in a pool of, I couldn't swim that well. I was taking swimming lessons, but I couldn't swim that well. I was on this floaty that apparently had a hole in it, and I had gone to the deep side, and I had gone all the way to the bottom of the pool, and I was just sitting there thinking, okay, I'm going to die, and just accepting it. And I closed my eyes at the bottom of the pool, and when I opened my eyes, I saw something very like silvery and shiny come towards me. And I closed my eyes again, and then I was at the ladder. And so
Wow.
that day I feel like an angel saved me. And I think my whole life has been near death experiences, but like I think I was the only one that wouldn't have left him. Like love, they told me, even they said love conquers all. And so I think if it was anyone else, they probably would have left. They would not have stuck through all those years of torment. I did it because I thought I was saving the world. I went through it because I was like, this, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. And so God knew that I had to be the one to go through this. Like I was the one that had to stick it out because I loved him at the time more than anything. And nothing was going to make me leave. And I wasn't going to allow him to work for Satan. He was only going to choose God. And eventually he started using like the prayer, and he started praying. And so if it weren't for me, then maybe, yeah, the end could have happened back in 2010 to 13. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Um, but I do feel like it had to be me because I would have never left.
Wow. It's a heavy burden to carry too, right?
It was at
Feeling,
the time, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, anything for God, right?
Amen. Amen. Anything for God.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to throw this out there too. I know um, the incidents with Lilith felt like help, but obviously, also the devil can
Yeah.
appear as an angel of light.
Yes. Yes.
So
No, I'm very aware. She even told me do not trust her.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, the thing is with the thing that I think with Lilith is that she didn't want the world to end because she knows what the end means.
yeah,
Eternal damnation for all demons and everything. So, I think that she was helping because she was worried about herself and what was going to happen if the end of the world were to come about. She wasn't like, she straight up said she did not want this to happen. She did
right,
not want the end of the world to come about. So I think that's why she was helping us,
right.
is because she was like, yeah,
Self-preservation. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, essentially.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow. And so through this, what has that done for your faith? Has it cemented your faith, made it stronger? Are you out there?
I always had it. there was
Yeah.
never, I like I said, I grew up Catholic, I grew up religious, my family's extremely religious. They knew that too, because they even commented, like, you not only love God, but you love his son. And so they would throw that out at me. They knew, like, my faith has always been strong, never been doubtful of God's love for us, of Jesus as our savior, who, rose from the dead. Like, I've believed that my whole life. So it's not that it got stronger. I will say that in the last year or two, I've been more open talking about my faith and things like that, because I kind of closed off from it, because now that I live in the city, a lot of people are not religious or don't like talking about it. So I've kind of like shut that part of my life off. And they say, people followers of Jesus will have less friends, and so maybe I was like scared of putting that in people's face, but the last year I'm really not as scared to talk about it, or put it out there. Like, my whole Facebook is now scripture.
Good.
So I don't worry about that anymore, but I won't say that that experience led me closer to God, because I already knew he was with me, and was there throughout the entire experience. So I wouldn't say necessarily that particular instance made it stronger.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you were so rooted in your faith. You
Oh
know,
yeah, I don't think I would have made it had I not been. So
no, no, not at all. And I don't know very
yeah.
many people being faced with that kind of opposition and temptation, because the things you're describing sounds like things that a lot of people who don't know the Lord or who aren't close to the
Yeah.
Lord would want.
Well, yeah. No,
Um,
they told me before that they had been searching for their antichrist for years and years and years. They're still searching. I don't know if they found one. I'm sure somebody's going through something similar, and I think people like me, we just don't talk about it. It's terrifying to talk about, because you think stuff's going to start happening again. But then I realized the more I talk about it, nothing happens, because I have God's presence. My house is
amen.
blessed. Like,
Amen.
but they did tell me that people in the past have not lived through the experience that he lived through. Any antichrist that they had tried to find before is not alive.
Yeah.
He was the first one that was able to contain them all, is what they told me.
Hmm.
So, and I mean, he's still alive and thriving today. We just don't talk at all.
Yeah.
Mm.
Now I know you can't, and I don't want you to, but I would love to know this guy's name and search his bloodline and his history and his family tree and see what, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
what made him
Yeah.
this specimen. But I don't really want that. I'm just saying, like, it would be like a fun fact kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I never really thought about that, I guess, but that probably
Um,
would be interesting. I know that he had royalty in his background. He had told me that once.
I'm
He
sure.
does have some famous people in his background.
I'm sure.
So because he had told me a little bit about his genealogy, and I know that their ties to royalty.
Yeah.
Um,
There's no,
but yeah,
I
that's all I
don't doubt
really
that
know.
at all. I
Yeah,
don't doubt that there's some kind of super dark Luciferian
probably
dedication that somebody did at some point.
something.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no,
To
I
put all
I
this
agree.
on him.
That's a good possibility. So,
Um, have you considered
but
writing
yeah,
a book about
a
all
book.
these?
I thought about it, but I don't know.
Because, dude,
I
this
I,
would
I don't know how to be perceived to people. So
it would be well received.
you
Because
think?
I know we've only talked for like an hour, hour and 10 minutes, something like that.
Yeah,
I know there are tons of details and nuances that you've had to push through, to get to the meat of the story that you wanted to share,
yeah.
because you're like, and this happened and this stuff happened.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I think my mom told me to keep a journal, so I wrote it in like the scripture book, and so there's not a whole lot, because in the beginning I started and then I got scared and I stopped.
Yeah.
So like I do have some of the stories, because over 15 years my memory is fading of the details, but I did keep a lot of things, and I also post on TikTok all the time, like little bits of my story and stuff, but
Yeah. I think it would help a lot of people. I think that
yeah.
people could look for warning signs, and not that they're necessarily dating the potential antichrist, but
Yeah. Well,
but
yeah,
they
yeah.
could see warning signs of if someone is demonized, you know.
Well, yeah, you would be able to tell immediately through their eyes,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But also, like, he did have his own warning signs before they would come through, as he would take his dip out. They didn't like nicotine. And then one tear one tear would fall. And that would be a sign also that someone was about to come through. There was one demon that did trick me, and because apparently he did like the nicotine. And so, he let me know that he did like it, but Lilith hated it. She would immediately take it out, and like certain demons did not like it. So
that's interesting too.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I know.
I,
Yeah,
I'm not saying that in like in a skeptical way. I'm saying that in like, it's amazing to get to talk to you because you went through all
well,
this
thank
stuff,
you.
and
Thank you.
it's a blessing for me to, that you came on to share it. I really
Yeah.
appreciate that. Like,
Like I said, I haven't really told many people. Actually, the majority of my family doesn't even know. I only told my dad right before he passed. Maybe like a couple months before he passed, I let him know that that happened. I only recently, maybe this past year, told my grandmother, but most of my family doesn't know. I only have a close knit few friends, and they all know, because they're the only ones that I can really talk to about it. But most people that know me don't know anything about it. And so I don't really know how to tell people, because it's not like you just bring it up in conversation, you
right.
know? And so I thought maybe if I start going on a podcast or something, that I could somehow share it that way. And maybe it'd be perceived a little bit better than me just like, Happy Easter, by the way, like,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
For
yeah.
sure.
Mm.
Wow. This has been an incredible conversation. Like, I don't even know how to wrap this up. There's just been
Yeah.
so many things that you had to experience, and if you did write a book, I would read it. I'll tell you that.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate
Um,
that. Mhm.
because there, the details, there would be so much help in the details
Yeah.
of these characteristics of these things, how,
Yeah.
how people, how things presented themselves, how you resisted. Um, the correspondence with the Catholic Church is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Is there, let me ask you this too. And I guess we can, if you want to, if you're ready for that, we could wrap up with this. What are, maybe what were then and what are now like your go-to scriptures? Like, do you have anything like stitched to your heart that you cling to? And I don't mean to throw, like, I don't mean to like hit you out of nowhere
No,
with that.
that's fine. Usually I'll go to Psalms or something like that, Yeah, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me, things like that. That's the main one that I'll say at night. I think it's 91. But that's the main one that I go through. I have tons screenshotted that the Lord has kind of like highlighted for me, certain ones. Matthew being one where he talks about how, or Jesus is talking about how, if you pray and you have enough faith and you believe, like even the mountain will go into the ocean.
Yeah.
And I think not a lot of people, when they pray, they truly believe that God's going to do it. They're asking for help, but they're not truly believing that he's going to come to them, because anything you pray for, you ask and you shall receive.
Yeah.
So if you believe in your prayer that it's going to happen, it will happen. And that happened to me very recently. I was praying for some financial abundance, because my job at the time had moved me to a further location, and it was going to cause my bills to go up heavily.
Yeah.
And not only the next day I found money on the ground, but I also got approved for a loan that has now saved me $700 a month.
Awesome. See,
So
he'll do it. He'll do it.
yeah, if y'all really believe that the Lord is going to help you, he will. So when you're praying, you have to have true faith, not just faith in God, but faith that God will answer those prayers. So that's huge for me.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Hey, Audrey, thank you so much for
You're
doing this,
welcome.
for
Thank you for
sharing this.
having me.
Absolutely. If there's anything else you want to talk about ever, just
Okay.
email me, holler at me, come back on the show. I would love to hear about the angelic experiences, like when you were 5 or 6 years old, and
Yeah.
I 100% believe that you were saved.
Yeah, I do too.
I think that's wonderful. But yeah, it's been great. I appreciate the
Right, thank you.
conversation, putting up with all my questions,
Oh yeah, no, you're fine.
and please don't forget to send me the Amazon link to those cool
Yeah,
posters behind you because I,
yes, I
I
will.
think they look so cool. I think it would help out my church too for Bible study and for
Yeah.
Sunday school.
I'm teaching my kiddo for those that don't know. That's that's
Yeah,
what
that
that's
was all
for.
fair. Yeah. But yeah, that's really sweet. And I don't know, just thank you for everything, and may God bless you in all your endeavors.
May God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.